Hey everybody, welcome to Stuff Sketched with Gregg Schigiel. I am Gregg Schigiel, and you are seeing my hands drawing at 3.5 times the actual speed the drawing was happening. With this one, it's another live drawing of my actual hand as opposed to a screen recording. I skipped ahead a little bit. I skipped the part where I was doing the pose sketching. With the last video, I noticed that it was all pretty light. I'm not even sure you could really see the sketching that I was doing. And the intention was to have a colored sketch at the end of this whole process. I figured it would give me an opportunity to maybe not speed things up so much, so you could maybe see a little bit more of what I was doing. So I blocked in the figure, and now I'm doing the penciling part. I'm figuring out what goes where of this drawing of Iron Man. It's a specific Iron Man armor from a storyline called The Crossing from the late 90s. I think, yeah, The Crossing. I vaguely remember it. Mostly I remember the armor. I thought the armor looked cool because of the gauntlets, the gloves. So I selected a pose that would accentuate, or not accentuate, but I don't know, yeah, accentuate the voluminousness of the gloves or the gauntlets. Why am I drawing this specific Iron Man? This specific version of the Iron Man armor from such a specific story? This is a commission request. I got an email. Somebody asked if I would be able to do this, and the answer is yes. It's happening. Well, it has happened, but you're watching it as it happened. Also, I want to point out that with the last video, I wasn't entirely sure how to correct the momentary blurring of things. J. Robert Deans offered some advice via Twitter. Couldn't pull that off. I'm recording these things off of a phone camera, and it just didn't have the capacity to do what you recommended. But I thank you, Mr. Deans, for your attempt at making these videos better. Would that there were comments, that we could have a whole conversation below. But when you label these videos for kids, there are no comments. So you can see now the gauntlets coming into form a little bit. I mean, it's still pretty light. Again, it's pencils, but now I'm gonna start inking. What you just noticed there was something with my lamp. Got sort of dull. Not dull, that's the wrong word. Not bright enough. Now with the inking, as you may recall from the last time, a lot of moving the page around, as I tend to pull my lines rather than push my lines. So in order to assist me in the inking, there's a lot of spinning going on, as you will see as I continue to ink this piece. So this is what it would be like if at a convention, I was sitting and you said, "Hey, I would like a sketch of so and so." This is kind of what the process would be. Granted, this situation is much more comfortable, as I was at a table with a comfortable chair, as opposed to being at a convention table, which is usually not quite the same as even the kitchen table I was sitting at as I drew this. Why not on an art table? I like the wood grain of the kitchen table, and my art table right now is so covered in stuff that it's just easier, and the lighting is better where my kitchen table is. So those are the reasons you're seeing me work at my kitchen table. That was another neat thing about this Iron Man armor. There's a lot of beveling. I think that's the word for it. Rivets. Beveling's the wrong word. A lot of rivets, which I think kind of look neat. There was in the 90s, in the earlier 90s, there was a revamp of the Legion of Superheroes, the DC characters, and Pharaoh Lad had a mask that had the rivets on it. It looked pretty cool. That is the only Legion era I am familiar with. So if mentioning the Legion makes it seem that I know stuff about the Legion, I do not. I read that stuff. I guess that was the post-Zero Hour era of Legion, and I liked it. Good stuff. and yet I did not go back and read past Legion stuff. I just sort of stuck with that for a bunch of years. I think I read it through the late 90s. Yeah, probably from like 91 to 98, 99, something like that. Can't remember. So now you're seeing the size of these gauntlets. And I don't know, maybe I exaggerated them a little bit. I don't think I did. I mean, the reference I was looking at, there were different sort of versions, different takes on how the big, massive gauntlets looked. But I don't know, I like them. Maybe it's not realistic. Maybe it's nothing you'd see in a movie. But it looks cool. So earlier I had blocked out a lot of the reflections and shadows and stuff, and then I just erased all of them because I wanted to give it another pass and see things as cleanly as possible. So that's what's happening here is I've penciled, and now I'm going back in and just sort of finding the shadows and sort of is reflection lines the right word? I don't know. The metalness. I'm finding the metalness. That's gotta mean something, right? Now, something else that happened with this video is I set it up to pencil and ink, and then I paused it briefly, and then I restarted it to color the whole thing. And when I finished coloring it, I realized that the camera ran out of space. The phone that I was recording on ran out of storage. So it only recorded the start of the coloring. So in this video, it's just going to cut to, or fade to, the final colored piece. Because the coloring process was incomplete. So I figured it's really not worth showing it. Hope you don't mind. You'll see the finished drawing. That's gotta be something in there, right? It's the one problem with not speeding the drawing up more is if I don't have anything to say, there's just a lull of silence. Now I will say, so if I was working digitally, as I so often do, I would have moved this entire figure down maybe at least half an inch, possibly even made the figure itself a little bit smaller. But I am not working digitally, so I cannot just grab the figure and slide it around the page. So I'm stuck with the choice I made. Still think it works. Still happy with the pose and all of that. But compositionally, I think I could have moved things around. So one of the things that I think is neat about Iron Man, and Iron Man was never a super favorite of mine, but there are moments there are things about him that are fun to draw. I like the simpler armors, the ones that look more like superhero costumes. So this one still has a superhero costumeness to it. I always like the sort of pods on the sides of his belt, things like that. But I do like how the reflections and such of the red parts of his armor are shaded and treated differently than the gold parts. Like the red parts have big, sort of bulky, chunky shadows, and then the gold parts have shimmery, shiny, more. It's almost like the gold parts are reflective and the black parts are shaded. I don't know if I'm phrasing this properly, but I think you know what I'm saying. And some of that is red versus yellow, right? Like the red is going to read darker. Tonally, it's darker, of course. But now I'm going in and doing some of the gold stuff. Also funny that in old Avengers comics, I don't know if they still do this, because I haven't read an Avengers comic in a long time, but they would call Iron Man Shellhead, and then I feel like I have a memory of them calling him Goldenrod every now and again, which, like, his armor is mostly red. Proportionally, it's more red, and then there was an armor that was red and white. There was no yellow in it at all. Unless Goldenrod was just like a throwback to his very first tin can golden armor. Maybe. Thinking about all this is all just off the top of my dome, talking about Iron Man. Maybe more than I've talked about Iron Man in a very long time. Now, you're not going to see it here because it's something I caught when I was coloring it, but there are parts of his collar that I did not finish inking. Well, you're about to see that now I go in, I'm going to switch pens to something thicker. Oh, first I got to do the gloves. But I'm going to switch to a thicker pen to fill in a bunch of spaces. Something that, again, if it was digital, I'd be using a selection tool, the magic wand, and I would just grab a bunch of stuff and click a few things and it would all fill in. But now you have to sit and watch me do it at 3.5 times speed. Yeah, so there's the big thicker. And this is just filling in spaces. Which is kind of where everything kind of. How many times can I say kind of? It's where everything really takes form. You know, all the dimensions sort of comes to life, which I guess is sort of the function of inking. I mean, I don't fancy myself a top shelf inker per se. I was just telling somebody that for me, inking it's mostly that I'm drawing with pen. But in things like this, where you're blocking the shadows, you're creating shape and texture and form, that is inking. Or at least it is a function of inking. And then, yeah, flying by the propulsion of his jet boots. And then some crackle coming out of the gauntlets. So now it's a bit of erasure. And then this is when I go to take a moment to go color. I forgot to sign it. I'm about to do that now. And then, the coloring is just going to cut to the color version. Sorry I didn't get to show that to you. That's about all the stuff I have left to say. See you next time.